And you made the point that, it's time that we understand and we take this to the next level. So please refresh that and break down what you were saying the other night.
Yeah, we started out by saying we wanted to have a conversation around race and around systemic racism. And we have to be really clear about what it is that we're talking about here in America and why are we oppressed as a people of color, and why are we classified as black, Negro, colored, and why is the other group classified as white? But none of us are classified as American. And what we're all striving to be classified as is American. Now, what has happened here in America is that they've put us into this color-coded caste system. And in this color-coded caste system, black and people of color have been taken out of their birthrights. So we have to fight for voting rights. We have to fight for civil rights. The classified white is given birthrights, never having to fight for voting rights, civil rights. So we're fighting for equality. So we haven't had the race conversation yet. We haven't had the systemic racism conversation yet. We are still trying to have these changes made in America where we are looked at as human beings and we are one America, not classified as white, black, yellow, green, purple, and red. That's the problem that's happening here in America.
The Hall of Famer Isiah Thomas, thank you. We are actually going to talk to you a little bit later in the show as well. According to Shams Charania, the Rockets and the Thunder are planning to boycott Game 5 of their series as well. So, as promised, developing situation. Let's head back down to Orlando. Hardworking Rebecca Harlow, what's the latest you're hearing down there?
Yes, well, Chris, Bucks general manager Jon Horst was very respectful in addressing the media. Now, just so you know, there were only about a handful of us back outside of the Bucks locker room waiting for any kind of word from the team. He let us know that there will be an official statement coming from the Bucks organization, but that likely the players would remain inside of the locker room for a while. So he told us that we didn't necessarily need to wait. The players might not speak today. They might not even speak tomorrow. But again, that there would be an official statement coming from the Bucks. But what I can tell you guys is this, being around here in the bubble, I have talked to several Bucks players who have told me that as a team, their initiative is all about creating awareness around voting. Wesley Matthews has been very vocal in that. He wears "Vote" on the back of his jersey. Some of the things that they're looking to do at Fiserv Forum back at their home arena, they want to make that a voting site. So there are different initiatives that they really want to do to create that real systemic change. But again, an official statement might not be coming today. Now, I've texted with several players from other teams who tell me they're also watching this unfolding and that they're undecided as to whether or not they'll be boycotting their games as well moving forward.
Those players that you've texted and spoken to, have they said that there's anything that they want in particular as an end result? And do any of them have plans on leaving Orlando? Because that's a very different situation.
No, I haven't heard anything like that. I've not been getting the sense or the message from any players that they're planning on leaving Orlando. Now, that doesn't mean that they might not make that decision or make the decision to stay, but right now everything just feels very up in the air. But what I can say is that the players feel very strongly about creating that systemic change. It's not just about wearing a T-shirt. It's not just about, pictures or shoes. It's about how to create real change for Americans. So that is the message that they're continuing to try to get out here in Orlando.
Rebecca Harlow, thank you for your report yet again. We appreciate you. Let's head now to Stephanie Reddy, who is also was scheduled to be on the sidelines for tonight's OKC-Houston game. According to multiple reports, that game also planning to be boycotted as well. Stephanie, can you confirm those reports? What is the latest?
I have not. Hello, Chris. I've not been given any official word, but I can just tell you what I have witnessed because, as you mentioned, I am here in the building. At about 4:15, there were players on the court shooting, getting shots up, warming up, coaches sitting on the bench, as you know, is often the case when the coaches are waiting for players to come out. And then this happened. We see someone leaving the locker room from the Thunder, and we can follow them. You can see now the gentleman in the gray shirt. He comes out, and he appears to deliver a message because you can see all the heads turn. And the blue jerseys, the blue shirts, players and assistant coaches that are helping those players get warmed up. And then they all leave the court to go to the back. Nearly around that same time, I also witnessed Houston Rockets officials, the staff, some of the coaches that were waiting for players to come out. They also went into the back of the arena area where their locker room is. Now, that was 4:15, and now here we are 30 minutes later, and things have escalated and progressed quite quickly. Shortly after that, we're going to show you some film where we saw Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul. They were meeting in a room together. Here they are leaving. It was about 10 minutes they were in that room. Now, the reason why this is important is not just because they're leaders for their two teams, but as you may know, Chris Paul is the president of the NBPA. So anything that happens as it relates to the players' union, he obviously is going to have a lot of say in what's going on. Shortly thereafter, we did see players leaving the building. So as I've mentioned, I have not been told anything official as it relates to this game that was supposed to start at 6:30, but we will be showing you pictures, players leaving the building. Now, I have been texting with coaches and players from other teams to see what they know. And I've been told that they're united. They want change. I texted with someone with the Orlando Magic because I was very curious. Is this a decision the Bucks made unilaterally, or was this a joint decision they made with the Orlando Magic? Because we saw both teams leaving the building, going to their buses. I was told absolutely, they are all united. They want change. That has been the united message. Now, remember when this all started, the talk of boycotting, it was with the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. They're supposed to play tomorrow. They were the first two teams that actually broached this topic publicly. They already had a meeting together. I was told they are still planning on meeting tonight, the two teams, Boston and Toronto, because they still did not come to a final decision about what they wanted to do with their game. Things have obviously changed quite quickly because now we have two games, potentially. We have not received official word about this one yet, but two games in the NBA that are being boycotted by the players to make a united stand for the things that they believe in. The reason why they said they were here, not just to try to win a championship, but to also use their platform, use their voices to initiate change. So, Chris, it is very fluid here. I'll do my best to keep you up to date.
Stephanie, first and foremost, great job. You answered about 5 follow-up questions with your reporting, so thank you for that. But I just want one clarification. When you say the players say that they want change, we understand that's not with their situation in Orlando. That's with social justice. Is there a particular thing that they've said that they want when they say, we want change?
You know, I've heard many things that they're looking to change. Obviously, you hear people talking a lot about voting and how important that is because that is an exact change that you can make. If you can affect policy, then you can affect the change. So you hear players talking about voting, registration, making sure they get as many people out to the ballot box as possible. But you also hear the talk about police brutality. And I think this latest incident in Kenosha, Wisconsin has sparked that again. They say that it's unfortunate. They're using their voices. They're wearing the shirts. It's printed on the court that Black Lives Matter. They don't feel like it's enough. They don't feel like their voices are being heard strong enough. So this is one more way that the players of the National Basketball Association are trying to affect change.
Well, you know what I call you, Stephanie, always ready. You proved that again today. Thank you. We appreciate
Thanks, Chris.
you. Hey, Sam, you know, we heard some of the things that Stephanie said, voting, police brutality. But before I get to you, let's bring Isaiah Thomas back in, who joins us on the phone lines. Isaiah, I know you heard Stephanie's report. And so the two things that the players are looking for is change in voting and change in the way that police brutality is handled in this country. Now, when we say change in voting, LeBron James, who said that you and him have a very close relationship, that's something he's been on the forefront of. Can you break that down for us and help to understand exactly what LeBron James has been doing with voting and what the players are hoping for in that situation?
Yeah, so what LeBron has been doing and what we all are a part of in terms of voting is making sure that people get to the polls and making sure that votes are being counted. And we eliminate voter suppression. Now, when you talk about voter suppression, we as classified people of color or blacks, Negro, the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. So consequently, we got a chance to go to the voting booths and vote. Now, that being said, there has been voter suppression, as we saw happen in the state of Georgia with Stacey Abrams. And when we look at that governor's race and what happened in certain communities of color. And when we talk about systemic racism and we talk about the system, we're talking about how people of color have been taken out of their birthrights. And that's what this conversation is all about. It's about birthrights. So when you're classified as white, you have birthrights. That means you get to vote, you get civil rights, and you get to live and be free in America wherever you want to live. Historically, people who have been cast in these color-coded caste systems have been redlined in certain communities where the banks have partnered with the government, have partnered with law officials, have partnered with the legal officials, and have basically relegated people of color or suppressed their votes in different areas. So what LeBron James is trying to do, and is doing successfully with the NAACP's help, is bringing all this to light, and then not only bringing it to light, but giving you a historical reference of why we are here today again, where we were back in the 50s and 60s, trying to fight for the right to have every vote counted, not have the votes suppressed, and live in a free democracy that's called America. And we are fighting to be Americans, just as our white brothers and sisters who are out on the streets marching and fighting with us. And they're saying they want to be American too. And we all want to be taken out of this color-coded caste system that we've been forced to live in for centuries in terms of black, white, red, yellow. So we're fighting for birthrights.
The Los Angeles Lakers, Portland Trail Blazers leaning towards boycotting Game 5 tonight, according to our very own Chris Haynes. So, Sam, I want to go to you on this one because when you look at the date that we are currently sitting in now, August of 2020, it was 4 years ago, August of 2016, where protesting and kneeling became a national story when Colin Kaepernick decided to do so in the NFL. As a person with a military background, Sam, and you look at what Colin Kaepernick was doing then to where we are now, put in perspective that journey.
Look, Chris, it was an American soldier who talked to Colin Kaepernick about kneeling, a guy who served in Afghanistan, all right, who fought for this country, all right? I just get so tired of people. The narrative is Black Lives Matter. We understand all lives matter. We get that. We've seen that. I mean, who doesn't understand that? But what we're saying is, again, I'm going to say it for the millionth time, and we're going to keep saying it until people listen. Our lives matter as much as anyone else's. That's all we're saying. You can't treat us this way. You can't shoot us down. You can't beat us. You can't redline us. You can't deny us. This is not what America stands for. And when you talk about a guy like Giannis, who's not from America, but grew up and dealt with his own racism from where he's from. And all around the world, you're seeing people protest around the world. This is not just happening in America. This is happening to poor people and people of color around the world. And the world is standing up saying it's time to get right. You know, we talk about all these great visions and we talk about all these things for what with life and liberty and justice, but we don't live it. We don't practice it. And these players, and during this time, now is the time to make this country live up to the promises that it stands for.
Isaiah, there seems to be a distinction, too, in the rhetoric involving the NBA restart and what the players are trying to accomplish. And there's a difference between social justice and racial justice. Those two terms, when you hear those, what's the difference?
Well, they are cousins of each other. So when we talk about social justice, we're talking about how we are treated and how we respond and react to each other in society. And those would be classified under social norms, the way we respect, talk, act, be with each other. Now, when you talk about racial justice, then you get to the conversation